This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
Well, this is for anybody that has a dog. And of course, if you do, they're your family. You love them. You would do anything for them. But if your dog is acting up, you might describe it as that, or maybe having some behavior issues or doing something that maybe you don't want them to do, have a little news flash for you. It's not their fault. It's probably yours. We're going to talk about that today. And I would love her to correct me if I'm wrong in assuming that. She is one of the wonderful people behind Paws, Mahal, which does dog training, boarding, grooming, and so much more in Arkansas. And she's Carol Culpepper. She's back with us. How are you doing today?
Very good, Steve. Doing real well. Thank you. I'm glad to be here with you.
Great to have you back here. Last time we got together, got so much insight in terms of working with our dogs. So your dog is not doing what you want it to do more times than not, if not all the time. Is it not the dog's fault? Does it really start with their person?
Well, sure it does, because we as people, we're the responsible guardian is a real popular term now. We're the guardians, if you'll let me use that, of the animal. And they are animals, and they're very special animals. Can't say enough how special they are. But they're animals, and they are not like us in the respect where we can reason, we can think of what we're thinking about and make choices and steer it. And we ultimately, each of us chooses what we're going to believe is the truth. And we're not always right. But of course, we chose that because that's what we believe is truth. Dogs, animals, they can't even begin to do that. They simply are what they are, and they respond according to what they are. It's a controversial term, probably, a higher animal. And I say that, I know a lot of people won't like that, but we are different and more capable with our brains and our minds to do things that animals aren't able to do. So all that to say, we come in, we get our pet, and we have a certain belief, a certain perspective, and then we don't like what we're seeing. It's very powerful and helpful to remember that they can't change their perspective unless their environment changes. They're not, if they feel danger, they may not be in danger, but an animal, if it depends on what they're perceiving, and we have to respond with understanding of what they're seeing and how they're seeing it and how they're going to respond. So we can change. They can't.
Would you say this makes sense? You need to think like a dog. Many of us think our dogs are human in some regards, having human qualities, or we think they understand us humans. But maybe they don't. They're just reacting in certain ways, and it appears that they understand what we're doing and what we want.
Exactly. They study us. They watch us. They get familiar. So they get familiar with our habits. They are probably aware of habits that we're not aware of ourselves, but they're not missing what we do in a day. And each action we make, every movement says something to a dog. They visually perceive, if they can see, of course, barring they're not blind. They perceive, they interpret what that means by just observing and over the long haul making associations with that. So anyway,
Yeah, that is truly a great observation in that they're always watching. They're adapting to our habits, and I see it, and I find it fascinating in terms of even my dog. Like it's like he's moved his schedule to my schedule where it could be 9:30 at night, the light goes off, and I walk up the stairs to go to the bedroom. What does he do? Jumps off the couch and he follows me. He just knows the routine, even first thing in the morning, like religiously. 6:15. He's in my face. He needs to go out every day. It's like autopilot. They are, I know it's a cliche, creatures of habit. They really are, aren't they?
sure, and predictable. In
Yes.
most, if the environment stays the same, we can predict what they're going to do. And in
Mm.
fact, changing the environment is one of the ways you can approach changing your dog's behavior. Or so,
Mm.
yeah, it comes down, Steve, to we really do ourselves a great service to really contemplate, what am I thinking? What am I concluding about my dog? It actually goes to everything in life. If something's not working, let's look, what am I thinking? Is there something that I might need to do different? Is there a thought that I'm believing that isn't true, et
Mm.
cetera, et cetera?
What about a dog's breed, their age, maybe their background? How does that influence the way you approach training? And do you pivot? It's not a one size fits all. Are you always looking at those things like the breed and the age?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. That's a very good question. And that's often an an unknowing mistake that people make, buying a dog that they like the way it looks, or they see a popular movie and they have to have one.
Mm.
But breed does matter. And some breeds matter much more than others. Very, very small dogs, they can be like little chihuahuas. They're very feisty, but they're so tiny that it doesn't hurt people, relatively speaking. But you get into the larger breeds that have some genetic predispositions towards a dangerous behavior, and you're talking serious business. If you've gone
Mm.
out and bought like a Dogo Argentina, or and because you like the way they look, you somebody can get hurt.
Mm. Um, is it possible for us to name some breeds and some of the traits that typically go along with them?
I'll use, just this weekend, I was asked about, there's a dog that's a Great Pyrenees mix. Beautiful dogs, great dogs. And the owners were distraught. They have three golden retrievers, which of course are a much different dog. And the Great Pyrenees mix had gotten to a scuffle. To me, it was a scuffle, but it's frightening and traumatic to an owner to have your golden retriever come to you with a bloody ear. And ears bleed very a lot because there's a lot of vascularity right there at that at on the
Sure,
skin.
sure.
So it doesn't look pretty at all. But in relative terms, in the dog's world, it really isn't that big a deal. They get mad at each other,
Mm.
and they'll fight, and they have teeth. So things happen. But to an unknowing owner that's never been around a big dog, et cetera, the circumstances can be very traumatic, very traumatic. And
Mm.
then to go back to the genetics, I was thinking about that dog, and I have seen, and Pyrenees have a resource guarding strength for good reason. They are guardian dogs, and so they take responsibility and ownership of what is theirs. Let's say a sheep. If a wolf attacks a sheep, that's his sheep, the Great Pyrenees, and he's going to have his way. He's going to get rid of the wolf. But see, you bring it home and you bring it into a home environment, then if the dogs, they could have had a bone out there, and that's normal behavior. But it results, you see, it's not so complicated if you back off and look at the big picture. But does that answer your question about genetics? That's one specific example.
I'm curious about this. If I were to give you a breed of dog or a mix, mine, for example, I want you to tell me what you think the traits might be or what to be expected. Could we do that? I'm just kind of curious what might come up.
Try, but I want to say, disclaimer. Now, I'm not an expert on every breed, and but I do certainly operate having out about experience with breeds. So I'm willing to do it, but I don't want people to think.
I gotcha. I just find it fascinating, even, for fun, not scientific. And guess what? Every dog is different anyway, but I'm curious, without me telling you, my dog's habits and things like that and what I observe, what might come up. So I have it's an interesting mix. Scottish Terrier, Pomeranian. Scottish Terrier, Pomeranian. A lot of people, he's white, he's a little tan. People think he's a corgi, but he's not, because he has kind of big paws, but he doesn't have short, like a corgi would. What do you think of, when you think of, those breeds? What comes to mind?
Okay. Well, now let me clarify something. The white, it's a Scottish Terrier, not a West Highlander Terrier, because those two are very similar, except the Westies are white and the Scottish are black. He could have got the white from the Pom, but
interesting.
But anyway, both those breeds, Scotties and Westies, they are terriers, and terriers are very tenacious, persistent, and they don't readily back off, because a lot of them are rodent. I don't remember. I've read every breed's history, but I don't recall it all.
Sure.
But rodent control is definitely one of the reasons a lot of terriers were bred to. And I mean, they will go down even badger holes and not stop until they pull out a badger. And badgers are fierce, so they're fierce little dogs. That's terrier.
Okay. So let's address that right there. Tenacious, I would say yes. He's sweet, loving, but when he's got something to say, nothing gets in the way. He's going
there
to.
You go. There you go.
And like you said, not back down. Weirdly, when anybody comes over, he'll bark to let me know something. And even when I'm looking at him, it's like, it's okay, it's all right, it's all right. And he looks at me, he's like, and he goes into like a little howl, like, I don't know if he's trying to tell me, we got somebody in the house or whatever it might be. He won't back down though. He's got a message. He's gonna deliver it.
There you go. And that is genetic, that sentry, that vocalizing to alert. I thought, right, as terriers do that. They're, I've got one. And then with beagles, the baying, they're on the trail, they smell it. This is the way to come. And, that's not so convenient in a home environment or in a neighborhood to have a howling dog, but that's in their genetics
he never does it. He never does it unless for 2 minutes when somebody comes by.
Right.
It's not like any other time. There's no barking. There's no noise. No nothing. No challenges. But he is a vivacious sniffer. Walking with him, sniffs everything. He's on the trail. I got to go over here. I want to take this in. And, I'm trying to lead, but also I want to allow him to have his freedom to check out different things. I don't know if I'm doing that right or wrong. What about a Pomeranian? What is a typical trait that you might know of?
I'm sorry, I don't know if you can hear. One of my dogs is barking in the background and it's really loud. I didn't hear your question.
Can't hear it here. Zoom has a filter and it filters everything out except your voice, so I didn't hear it. Typical traits for a Pomeranian.
Okay. Well, it's funny. That's one breed there. I'll tell you what I see because they're so precious and little and cute. They're commonly coddled and spoiled. So and I say spoiled, people are entitled to do, what they want with their dogs. However, it is gonna bring about the any small cute dog like that's coddled and held a lot, they'll tend to guard the owner as theirs. It's not guarding to protect the owner, it's claiming the owner. So if they're a lap dog, they can tend to react to people that sit near and, get away from my owner. They're basically saying, but it's often perceived as guarding and protecting.
Gotcha.
But yeah, as I begin to say, I don't remember. I always imagined Pomeranians were for little lap dogs. I would have to review the history of who first developed them. So I gotta claim ignorance on
No
my
worries.
confidence in the gene.
I appreciate you saying that and learning a lot here no matter what. I'm just picking any dog here. But it seems like the breed and, of course, the age do make a difference. What about stress and anxiety? So many people, I hear dealing with that. Is it just a lack of mental stimulation many times showing up in a dog's behavior, and that's why they can potentially be stressed out?
Well, there can be quite a number and a combination of things that go into that. Um, a one common scenario, and we need to be careful because you do need to take into account the combination and the whole picture. But if you could separate out the pieces, one piece that tends to be a common stress inducer is even going back to the coddling. It's so natural and normal and enjoyable to hold your pup, of course, and they're precious and they're cute. But if you do that all the time, the puppy develops a dependency on it because that is what it's used to. And so when you go to try to go to work after you've had a break and you're with your new puppy, you've got a puppy that can't self-soothe, that has to be held, or it's going to be a little anxious or a lot anxious. So you see, that definitely is one. It's like me with you could analyze it, or it's analogous to spoiling children. If you don't allow them to learn some of the tough things, they can't handle tough things. It's emotional maturity, really.
Yeah.
They have to
It's funny. Translating back to kids, I have a friend who has a baby under the age of 1, and challenging there in terms of letting them go in the parents' bed, and even a 2. And his son is, I think, 4, and he allows the child to go in the bed. What are you setting that up? What's the setup there for the future?
And I was guilty of that, Steve. I understand it, and
yeah.
It makes everything we do has consequences, everything. And of course, there's good consequences and there's bad consequences. And I certainly appreciate that it's difficult. It's much easier to let them fall asleep. That's why I had done it. That's part of my reason. You just are so exhausted, you just can't deal. So you just allow it. But it becomes a significant problem, and then you don't realize what's happening in the child's psychology over the years. that's a really serious implication.
And every situation is different. Not judging anybody, but what I'm
Right,
saying is
right.
connecting with what you're saying with dogs. In If you're always picking the puppy up and soothing it, I guess there's a place for it depending on the age. Um, it's
There's
going to
a
expect it.
healthy balance that we've
Yeah.
got to shoot for, and be awareness of what we're doing and what is it tending to promote.
So we mentioned puppies. If you're a first-time dog owner, what are the realistic expectations? Let's say the timeline for training, progress, maybe some setbacks. Every dog is different, every situation is different. But, as a rule of thumb, if you're trying to train your dog for the first time, let's say it is a puppy, we'll start there. What is a reasonable expectation for them to start getting it, if you will?
And well, there, let's start with what typically happens. Most puppies, ideally, they leave the breeder about 8 weeks of age. Now, if they come home, if they go to a new home less than that, there's going to be issues right there because the pup begins developing from day one. So, what you had mentioned, age, it matters in the neurological development, it
Mm,
matters in how they're being socialized. Like with if it's a single pup, it'll come up different than a pup that was in a litter because it had the environment with other pups. So, yes, every pup is different. So, just like us, the whole story matters. But back to what's normal, eight, one thing that's not commonly known, it's there are some periods in a puppy's life when the puppy will be fearful, and it's a neurological normality for development. And when you think in terms of the wild, at 8 weeks is the first one. When it's when it's more independent, so it's going to be more adventurous, they're a little fearful, and that makes sense because they would stick close to mom because
mhm.
things in the environment scare them. And then it occurs um actually from, let's see, it's 8 weeks to 3 months, which is only a month. That's when they can learn to socialize with other species, including humans. So see what happens. They bring this puppy home at 8 weeks. If it doesn't meet a lot of people, that puppy's going to be afraid. By the time a month's gone by, it's out of its neurological development for being used to other species. You see, it's going to be a little fearful. If it didn't meet a lot of men, it'll be fearful of men. If it didn't meet a lot of kids, it's going to be fearful of kids. So you see, everything matters. And that's just one incident.
It's so
And
true, though. I'm glad that you're bringing pictures back in my mind. When I first got my dog, like a month into it, again, puppy, he wasn't having it with me. And I actually was fearful that we would not bond. And I think it's what you just said. There was an issue with men. Maybe not enough of, maybe one wasn't kind to him. I don't know what it was, but I had to get down on the ground on all fours. And I felt like, let me get on his level. And eventually everything was okay. But there was moments there where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be the odd one out. He loves everybody in the family, but not me. I love your advice. I love your connection with dogs and animals in general, Carol. It's fantastic. How do we find you? What's the I know you're in Arkansas, correct?
yes, right near Little Rock, Sherwood, Arkansas. It's Paws Mahal. The website is www.pawsmahal, PAWSMAHAL.org. And then certainly you can find us there. The phone number's there. The phone number is 501-952-7765. That's the line at Paws. And yeah, you can search us. We should come up pretty easily. And um,
Fantastic.
Love to talk to anybody.
Yeah, well, obviously you're there for hands-on training, grooming, boarding, but certainly virtually if somebody needs some guidance. So at this point, we're going to take a pause, pun intended, and catch up next time we get together. Thank you so much,
Okay,
Carol.
let me just correct you though. We only do bass nails and anal glands. We don't cut yet. We did used to. So the grooming is for our clients, bass and nails, maintenance grooming.
Gotcha. And then those are all things I don't do. So thanks for the clarification, and we'll talk soon, okay?
Righto. Thanks a lot, Steve.
Thank you.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.